Come get your first look at the curious case of the Citadel Artificer Tint set. Spiky bits. Alright, welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. Baer here again with you. And, well, I don't know what to make of this product. I mean, it's something new. It's the Citadel Artificer Tint set. And basically what the aim of this is to mix it with your paints to turn them different hues, different colors, basically. So it's kind of like an advanced level sort of thing that, you know, is not for the entry-level hobbyist. From what I can tell, it's barely for the advanced level hobbyist because, as you're going to see, there's not a whole lot of explaining that comes with this package here. Now, it looks great. Of course, the package itself is, you know, amazing. They show you, you know, the colors and everything. There isn't any confusion on what you get in here. You get 10 paints, 3 ml pots, whatever. They're mostly safe depending on what state and or country you're in. And then they kind of show you some demos on the back, you know, so they don't have to really explain in any particular language how it all works, right? Now, I don't know if that was intentional or that was just an oversight on their part, but that's basically where we're at. This is about all the documentation that comes with the package is what is right here. Now, maybe they left out something in my particular package. At $50 each, the store only got one in, so I only have this one to compare. So that being said, there may be an insert in here that we don't see. But we're just going off of this. So looking at how it works is you basically add any of the 10 tints to one of your acrylic paints to turn it a different shade, not to be confused with shades, which are actually washes, the completely different product they produce. Now, they're named after the Primarchs, which I think is pretty cool. There are a couple of spelling errors, surprisingly. That is not how you spell and that right there is definitely not how you spell Conrad Kurz. But that aside, I mean, it looks like it kind of works. Like you basically take the tint and everybody knows red and blue, or excuse me, yellow and blue. Ooh, that's hopefully, yes, that is yellow. Okay, we're good. Yellow and blue make green. I think that's pretty solid physics right there that most of us know. Now, it doesn't really look like they mix a whole lot into here. So, you know, that leads me to believe, and again, I'm just spitballing here, not a lot of documentation in this, that literally these tints are just the pigments themselves of paint. So you see, acrylic paint consists of two parts. Basically, the actual paint itself, you know, the shade, and some sort of binder, which is usually in acrylic paint, like some sort of it's usually majority water, but it's basically usually acrylic polymer emulsion, which is basically just getting down to chemistry level and proprietary stuff per each paint line that's out there. That's why some of them spray better through airbrushes and things like that, because now you're starting to get down to the molecular level with what it's designed to bond to, how fine the grains are. You know, there's actually grades of this stuff once you start looking into it. That's way too inside baseball for what we're doing here. So you've got a pigment and a binder, and that's generally how acrylic paint works. Remember, acrylic paint is one of 3 types of paint. It's not oil-based and it's not watercolor. Those are completely different ends of the spectrum. This basically dries by using evaporation from the water that is basically the majority of the acrylic polymer emulsion, which is the other part. So there it is. There's your science lesson for today, right? So that really seems so a pigment is basically a highly concentrated kind of paint, because normally you got this and then you have the binder itself, right? And that is what forms the majority of what comes in your paint bottle, which is hilarious to me because, you know, just like our bodies, the majority is made up of water, literally. So you're literally paying ridiculous prices for paint. We all are, for something that's majority water, which is super hilarious to me. And we'll look at that in a second. So let's take a look at the product themselves before I get to, you know, people are, we were looking at you left us looking at the box for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Well, sorry guys. Sometimes I like to talk, you know, I like to drop them knowledge bombs that you're not going to find on other channels, and that's just what we do here. So once you open up the box itself, you get this little kind of sticker sheet, and I was like, what the heck is this sticker sheet? And I was just like, whatever, I just kind of, you know, passed it by. Then you get 3 of these little Citadel spatula things for the... They used to use these for, you would take out the texture paints, and this is what you would use to put the texture paints on the base. Well, now that they reformulated them, you can actually use brushes, and it's water soluble, and they use microbeads. So I don't know if they had a glut of these things and they needed to pre-package it up with something, but here we go. Maybe that's where the stock of these things went, is because you get 3 to here. And then you get the little 3 ml pots of paint. Now our normal pot of paint is 12 ml. So you're basically getting, what, a quarter of a pot of paint right here, basically. If it's 3 to 12, and that's not counting the double oversized ones for the washes. Now you're probably going to notice something here, like, wait a minute, where's the label? Well, it turns out these are the labels. So you have to actually apply the label to the pot of paint, and then there's these little stickers right here, which I guess you can put your recipe or something on and to stick it to another pot, so that you know that you mixed this in with another pot of paint or something like that. So now this has me a little curious as to if this is the combination or the recipe of how much actual pigment to binder is in a normal pot of Citadel paint. Like, I'm almost wondering if this is like a fourth of a normal Citadel pot of paint, and we just didn't get the rest of the pot, because basically they're pricing this out. I mean, if you take these little whippy sticks aside, you're paying about $5 each here for these pots of paint, right? So, which, I mean, that's just simple math. It's $50, you get 10 paints or pigments or whatever, tints, whatever you want to call them, right? So, you know, you kind of start thinking about it and you start pricing it out in your head. This is 3 mLs, a normal pot of paint is 12 mLs. Well, it turns out that just to try to put this in a monetary perspective that we can all, I guess, respect, is a gallon of US gallon, like a liquid gallon, you do the conversion, it's roughly 3,700 mLs. So, you know, a gallon of the same paint would be roughly, what, 1,200, give or take, mLs. So that you could roughly get, you know, a 3 ml bottle. So this roughly, if you were to put a value on a gallon of any one of these paints, just the pigment part of it at retail, that's like $6,300. That is like literally one of the most expensive substances or liquids on the face of the earth. Like, it's crazy if you think about it. So, and the same thing, I mean, you can say the same thing for a printer toner cartridge, you know, like, or printer ink even. Like, it is ridiculously expensive once you multiply it out and start looking at it. And the funny part is, like I said, the majority of this is water. I mean, if this, and I'm not saying it is, because I don't know Citadel's proprietary formula, you know, that's just, you know, looking at the money value of it, that's kind of where we're at. You know, it's just kind of funny to do the math on that. And then, of course, if you do the monetary value on a 12 ml pot of paint, the normal pot of paint, which is, you know, roughly a large percentage of water, of course, you're looking at, I mean, at 12 mLs, you're at a gallon, and they retail for roughly $4.25. You're looking at roughly $1,300 for a pot, a little Citadel pot. If you were to price that out to the gallon size, obviously you never do that. Just color match it down at Lowe's or whatever and get you some latex. It's not the same. It is latex. It's not an acrylic based paint at that time. You know, it turns into something completely else that isn't for arts and crafting. But if you're doing terrain and such, it's fine. Don't put it on tanks or don't put it on your models, it just won't work. But if you need that kind of volume for paint, which, let's be honest, who needs a gallon of Abaddon Black? Nobody does. But it's just fun to, like, put the, you know, just trace the, you know, just multiply it out and put the money on it, because literally people complain about the price of gasoline or the price of booze, and we're just like, wow, that's a $1,300 pot of paint. Could you imagine stepping up to the counter and be like, well, that's you want to paint that $12 model? Well, that's $1,300 for that pot of paint, which would be a gallon. Here you go. Like, thud. Just kind of interesting stuff. So now, I know I was a little kind of boo-boo-lipped at the beginning about the fact that there's no documentation for this. I wasn't 100 100% true on that. There is a PDF download on Games Workshop site, which also happens to be the same exact Paint Splatter Extra article that is in the White Dwarf right here. So they basically give you some ideas for doing a couple of different tints and things like that. Now, this being a first look unboxing / review of this product, we have not put it to the test yet. So I definitely am super interested to see how this works and how much material of the pigment you have to actually mix with an existing acrylic paint to get it to change. So I feel like maybe we'll do a hobby head-to-head, another famous hobby head-to-head, and try that out in a future video. But I've already been talking for about 10 minutes about nothing. So we'll just kind of end it there. And this is it. Obviously for advanced level folks. I'm not sure that beginners are going to want something like this, but it is something kind of cool, and I'm sure we'll see some video tutorials from Games Workshop as well, exactly how to use this to, you know, really kind of tweak some of those colors out there, because you can do a lot with some of these yellows and some of these reds right here, right off the bat, you know, and I'm not exactly sure what I would do with this white. I guess you could add it to some purples and start taking things towards the pastel range, but this is definitely really cool. Like if you have a bunch of colors and you want to kind of keep them in the same tone, you could add these to it. So there's definite possibilities, but I feel like for the everyday gamer or everyday hobbyist, this probably isn't something for them. But then again, sometimes you just want to think outside the box and up your hobby game and try something new. Well, this might be for you. $50 retail, Games Workshop new Citadel Artificer Tint set coming in hot this week.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.